So when I first decided I wanted to bring the outside in, I decided to bring in a plant that many told me was not a plant for beginners. It's a high maintenance plant. Why do I love this plant so much? Well, it will teach you how to become a better plant parent because it pushes you to be better. And all of us need that push. Hi, I'm Hilton Carter, and today I'm gonna teach you everything you need to know about how to care for one of my favorite plants. Actually, dude, you are my favorite. The Ficus lyrata, AKA the Fiddle Leaf Fig. Today, I will be covering how to pick out the best and healthiest fiddle leaf fig, proper potting, soil, fertilizer, when and how to water this plant, how to propagate this plant, finding the best light for your fiddle leaf fig, and the special care and maintenance to make sure your fiddle leaf fig friend thrives. My first plant was a fiddle leaf fig, one of the most finicky plants out there. But I was like, you know what? I want the challenge. So I brought a fiddle leaf fig into my home about 8 years ago. And you know what I did to help set myself up for success? I named him. Here he is. That's Frank. And Frank and I have gone through our trials and tribulations over the 8 years. And what he has shown me is how to properly care for all of the living things in my life. Now, when it comes to a fiddle leaf fig, native to West Africa, it is a tropical plant that in nature will grow up to about 50 plus feet, but in your home can grow up to 25 feet. For me, the care, the love of it is looking at the beautiful foliage, named after the fiddle because of its fiddle shape. Now, when it comes to selecting them, the best thing to do is to make sure you're bringing in a healthy plant. You want to make sure that the foliage is bright, green, upright. Signs of a healthy plant will be new life unfurling, starting to grow from those branches as well. So that's how you want to go about it. But you also want to make sure that you're checking above, under the leaves as well, around the soil, around the branches for pests. Once we take a look at the foliage, we also want to consider the two types that we could purchase. Some like that more tree-like shape, others might like the more bush-like shape. And the difference between the two is that one, as you can see here, will have multiple branches coming out of the soil, while another will have one single branch and then disperse all of its branches to look more like a tree. Now that you have your new fiddle leaf fig and you've named it, let's talk about that pot and soil it should live in. So if you're looking for a more detailed guide on how to pot your plants, please check out our chapter on potting plants. But when it comes to the fiddle leaf fig, it's one of those tropical plants that wants its soil to become dry, so you're gonna have to place it in a pot that is perfect for it. And when I'm talking about perfect, I'm talking about a more porous container like terracotta, concrete maybe, something that is more breathable, that will allow that moisture to pull its way to the sides of that pot and away from the soil of your plant. Now, when we're talking about the terracotta pot or any pot for a fiddle leaf fig, what is always important is to make sure that that pot has a drainage hole to allow all of the moisture to go through the hole and then outside of the pot and into your base tray. Now, when we're getting our soil mixture ready for this particular plant, what we have here is what your roots love because they will grow and get all their nutrients from this soil. But then we're also going to add what is called perlite, something that can help pull the moisture away from your soil and your roots to keep your roots healthy. Now, for me, I make sure that I always start them off with a ratio of 80% potting mix and 20% perlite. So in this case, I would take my scooper, let's say 2 scoops of potting mix, and then maybe a half scoop here of perlite. As you add the perlite to that soil, you can kind of see here how this is all like kind of clumpy, a bit impacted. But once you start to add perlite to it, it loosens it up. And what we're talking about there is a more aerated soil, so that when the water goes through it, it's finding its way through that soil and then out of your drainage hole. So when you bring home a fiddle leaf fig, more than likely, it is already packed with all the nutrients and goodness it needs. And over that year, it's going to get washed away. So you have to do the work. You have to apply more nutrients to that soil. There's different ways you can do this. One, you can add a liquid fertilizer to your pot, or you can add, let's say, capsules, which is a more slow release fertilization for that soil itself. Or you could be someone who decides, you know what, instead of doing that, I'm going to take my plant out of its pot, remove that old soil, and add fresh, new, nutrient-rich soil so that my roots can get all the nutrients and food they actually need. Now, when it comes to these fertilizers, the best time to fertilize a plant will be in spring and summer during grow season. And always make sure to not over-fertilize a plant. That can kill your plant. So if you're not familiar with fertilizing plants and you're not sure what to do, make sure when you're in that plant shop that you seek out and associate and ask the questions that are necessary. Now your fiddle leaf fig is potted and fertilized. Let's actually talk about regular care, starting with watering. When you're talking about watering, it's all about making sure you check the moisture level of your soil first before watering any plant. But when it comes to the fiddle leaf fig and most of your ficus plants, it's all about making sure that you get that right because they are prone to being overwatered and also prone to being underwatered. So when it comes to the actual watering process, you want to make sure you help yourself out and get something like a moisture meter because that can get detailed information of what's happening inside of that pot. So when you take a moisture meter, it'll tell you whether it's wet, whether it's moist, or whether it's dry. And when it comes to fiddle leaf fig, you only want to water it once the top half of that soil is completely dry. That's something to check. So with this moisture meter, what I would do is I would pull my foliage back in this pot and I stick it down in that soil, about halfway in. And if you're looking at what it's reading there, it says dry. So now I know for a fact I need to give my plant some water. In the process of watering that plant, what you want to do is make sure that you're providing it with lukewarm water, not hot, not cold. Hot and cold water will shock your roots and kill that plant over time. So just make sure you're aware of that. Now, when you water your fiddle leaf fig and all your plants, you just want to make sure you get around the edge of the pot, slow and steady. You'll start to see the moisture meter just change a bit and go from dry to moist. And I'm going to keep watering until I see that transition of a dry base tray and then a little bit of water starting to trickle out. And there it is. That is the water trickling out. That tells me for a fact that I've given my plant enough water. After 30 minutes, if there's still water in your base tray, you want to make sure that you take your plant off of its base tray, take your base tray, dispose of that runoff water, then place your plant back on top of that base tray. Signs that you aren't doing something right. One, browning. If you start to have dry browning, crispy edges, or in the center of the actual leaf itself, that could be caused from underwatering. But I would possibly rather have a drier leaf with a brown spot here and there than have a leaf turn yellow. Once you start to see a leaf yellowing, that could be a sign that that plant is overwatered. Now, it can happen from any area of that leaf. It could start here, but the full leaf will become completely yellow, and that yellowing leaf will eventually fall off of that plant. But a brown spot on a plant will stay there. And if you're someone that doesn't like, let's say, a brown edge on a leaf or a little brown spot, you can take your shears and prune it back to remove it from that actual part of your plant. Let's actually talk about the best type of light for your fiddle leaf fig. Light for this plant is everything. I mean, everything. If you get the light wrong, as soon as you bring it into your house, all the leaves, every single leaf will fall off. It is very important to make sure you place them in a spot that gets bright and direct light. Let me tell you some clear signs that something is wrong. If they're not getting enough light, low light, you'll start to see brown edges or brown, dark brown in the center of your foliage. If they're getting too much direct sun, you'll see almost like an orangish hue of brown in it. That's like sunburn. So if you're looking for a more detailed guide on how to find the light for your fiddle leaf fig, please check out my chapter on light. And when we're talking about light, that's not the only thing that's gonna make your plant thrive. Routine care, routine love. That's what is necessary for your plant friend here. And one of the things you should definitely be doing is wiping your leaves down. I do mine every other week just to take that layer of dust off because you want the light to hit every single part of your plant. It's all of the attention that you're gonna provide that plant that will truly make it shine. You might notice that once your plant starts to grow, parts of it are leaning towards the window, leaning towards the light. That's what plants do. So rotating it will keep it well balanced so that your plant doesn't fall over. There are some situations or instances where you'll have to prune that plant back to keep it more upright. But also if you're thinking about how to increase your plant family, we're talking about propagating a fiddle leaf fig, you're gonna do what we call a tip cut propagation. And where you're looking on your branch is where the branch turns a bit green or brownish green. That means I can take the cut anywhere on here that I want. And what you do is you get in there, you make a nice 45 sharp angled cut. You heard that snap? That was a nice clean cut. You then take that branch, you can see that there. Notice this white liquid. Know that this is toxic to cats, dogs, and also kids. So just be aware of that. When you make that cut, you're gonna clean off the end of that cut, and then you're gonna place your cutting in a nice clean vessel with fresh water. And over time, from the base of your cut, you will start to see roots develop and grow. And as they grow, once they're about 6 inches in length, then that will be the perfect moment for you to take that cutting and transition it into soil. So we have learned how to identify a healthy fiddle leaf fig, when and how to water it, how to propagate it, finding the best type of light for your fiddle leaf fig. And with all of this knowledge that you now have, you have the tools to make sure you can provide your fiddle leaf fig with the best life possible.